Afternoon.
Sorry, I was really jammed to the music. This music comes on in the morning before our broadcast. And truth be told, he's just sitting here waiting. And I'm like, is it true?
Yeah. Sure. Yeah,
that's what I do.
All jazzed up, and I'm like, I'm still sleeping.
I'm not really a morning person. I just play one on TV.
Right.
It's true. You okay?
Yeah,
I'm
still fighting it.
Hey, but here's the thing. You've gotten so much better.
Mm-hmm.
And our daughter is so much better.
Yeah.
She's just gotten better and better by the day. It's incredible. She's got more energy than I've ever seen her in her life. She's outside playing with the birds this morning. Literally, she's outside. She's like, I see the birds. I'm going to go play with the birds. And I'm like,
yeah, she doesn't get to go because she doesn't get to go outside as often as she wants to. So it's good.
Due to allergies and things.
Yeah.
But she's just having a great time this morning. So this family is healing. It's on the move. We're ready to go. So that's exciting. So praise God for that.
Awesome.
So today's day 2 of our discussion this week, all about strengthening our marriages and even restoring our marriages. If there's some, major issues in your marriage, or there's some communication breakdown, or whatever's happened with heart disease coming on the scene, what can happen with that is really, it can be devastating, and it can be really impactful and powerful. But both ways, heart disease can be really powerful in a marriage for the positive too. It has been in ours. So, it's something we really want to talk about today. So that's what we're doing this week. Today we're talking about how to make a marriage last. That seems like a much longer conversation than an hour. So we'll try to keep it shorter than that. But absolutely excited to start this discussion today. So we're happy that you're here. Thanks for joining us. If you're joining us on replay, we're happy you're joining us on replay also. So #replay. But first things first, we need to make sure that you're aware of a link in the description. So in the description, you're going to see, it's okay. You do you, babe. You're going to see a link there that is for the discussion text that we're using, the source of the study. And that's on the YouVersion Bible app or Bible.com. Either way, if you click that link from a desktop, it'll take you to the website and directly to this study. If you click it on mobile, then it will take you to download the YouVersion Bible app if you haven't already. Otherwise, it'll open your app and take you directly to this study. So you can follow along with us.
Right.
Cough break.
Sorry. Gotta hit that mute button. Anyway, thank you for joining us. If you are new to our broadcast and you don't know us, my name's Javie.
I'm Jessica.
And we are with Underdog Ninja Foundation. Here at Underdog Ninja, we focus on 3 things. That's faith, character, and action. And so we come here every morning, Tuesday through Saturday morning, Pacific time. Or was it 8 o'clock?
8 o'clock.
Pacific time. I don't know what time it is. Anyway, we go through God's word. We have these discussions about where God's taken us, and we focus on these devotionals specifically that we feel touch on those areas in life that hold us back, or the things that we have issues with when we're fighting this disease. And this week is a perfect example. This is something that happens to couples when one or sometimes both are fighting this disease. Unfortunately, the divorce rates are already high, but when you're facing this disease, it goes even higher. So we want to discuss that this week and see if we can help you wherever you're struggling. And like I said yesterday, we're talking about marriage, but this also goes into all other types of relationships too. So even though we're talking specifically about marriage this week, I want you to be thinking about, what can I take away? What can I take away from this and apply it to the other relationships I have around me?
Absolutely. I mean, I know that there's specific, marriage specific information that we're talking about that's just for marriages, but a lot of the information we're covering this week is applicable to other relationships and should be applied. It's all about interpersonal relationships. Could be with your kids, with your parents, with your neighbor, with your coworker, things like that. Neighbors, people on the bus. I don't know. Wherever you're interpersonally communicating with people, it has stuff that can be applied when you're interacting with people and you want to do it the right way. So this is stuff that really can apply to many places in our lives, especially when we're dealing with our own identity issues when it comes to heart disease and how we feel about ourselves. And I think a lot of this can apply to our relationship with ourselves too. I mean, this is being kind, being patient, not having to be right, understanding that where our intentions lie, and just communicating with ourselves. So good morning, Monica. You're here. This week's perfect morning. I hope everybody is having a wonderful morning. Yes, we are having a wonderful morning. And this week is really cool because we didn't even plan it on purpose. I just think God's just funny. It just happens. But this is the study that was put in our hearts to do this week over how to make a marriage last. And our anniversary, our 10-year anniversary is on Friday. So that's really funny. So this week, we're going to talk all about how to make a marriage last because we're going to have 30 more years.
That's right.
And so
just 30. Sheesh.
I don't want to put a cap on it. I mean, I'm just 50 more years. I'm really hoping for. But anyway, this is something that really is close to our hearts because we've seen so many marriages end because of something like heart disease. Obviously, lots of reasons, but it shouldn't end because you're battling a health crisis. It just shouldn't. It should be something that strengthens you and something that you get through together. And for our marriage, it's been one of the many things that has strengthened us together and our bond. And so I'm excited to jump in.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, our vows are through sickness and health, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes we forget about that part of our vows.
Sickness and health.
We're all good. We're all good with the health part.
Yeah.
But when sickness comes about, and I'm not talking about a cold. And I think that's what maybe when we said those vows, we kind of thought, okay, it may be the cold or flu, whatever else. No, sickness means sickness, disease.
Yep.
So, oftentimes that's when people bail.
Yep.
But I think that happens because, like yesterday, we were talking about breaking down the breaking down of communication.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
And the people thinking that this other person, whether it's the person physically fighting heart disease or the caregiver or spouse or support person, changing as a person, you've changed. Well, that's something I want to talk about today. As we're going to dive into the study text first. But I want to dive into today the idea that we all change and we should be changing. So let's talk about that today. But hey, Lene, hey, good morning. Hey, thank you so much.
Morning.
Good morning.
I'm
glad you're here.
That's a good point. Throughout your relationship,
Mm-hmm.
Everybody should be changing,
Mm-hmm.
right? You should be focused on always growing. So if you're always growing, you're always changing. So bringing a battle with a disease
Mm-hmm.
into the picture, yes, you're going to change because you have to adapt. You have to meet this disease with equal measure. How
Mm-hmm.
are you going to face it? How are you going to battle the waters that that's coming or that you are facing? And so it forces you to change. The problem is we don't equate that change to being positive.
Right.
When we go out and we try to personally grow ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
and with knowledge, whether it's going through school or some sort of other type of learning, we absorb that, and that's on purpose, and that we look at that as positive personal growth, right?
Yeah.
And change. And I think that's more accepting.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes there's just by someone going and getting healthier,
Right.
without disease, just getting in shape, sometimes that brings conflict, believe it or not.
Yeah, no, I've seen it, and
right?
we've both seen it, where that person goes and does something good for themselves, and then their spouse is like, oh, you've moved on without me. Like, that's the point. It's not the change. It's that the person feels like you're changing without them. And the idea is to change together.
Yeah, but my point is that when disease comes into the picture. Everything that you do to change your life thereafter sometimes is viewed as negative.
Oh, because if it wasn't for this disease, you wouldn't be doing this.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Because sometimes the spouse isn't ready for any of that. And they're like, well, and then just ticked off at heart disease because if it wasn't, it took my spouse away from me.
Well,
or whatever.
And then that leads to other types of bitterness. And, you know, if depending on what maybe possibly led them, or perception that led them to their heart attack, or led them to having
all the
disease.
Deep discussions that have never been had.
Right. Yeah. And so all these other things start coming out. But
well, let's dive into this really quick.
Yeah, because we're talking about how to make a marriage last.
Yeah, right? No, and this is the reason we're bringing all this up is these are the pitfalls, right?
Yes.
But we want to avoid those. So let's talk about that in just a second. But let's read this first. It says, when my wife and I were married, we were so in love. We expected the fairy tale, but instead it seemed like the beginning of a nuclear war. We were both convinced that God had us fall in love to punish us for sins future and past. She did not live up to my expectations. I did not meet hers. I responded by constantly criticizing her, and she responded by nagging and withholding affection. The vicious cycle soon spun out of control until we realized a vital truth. We were in the same boat, and if we wanted to survive, we both needed to bail out water. It finally dawned on me that if she lost, I lost. She began to realize that my loss was her loss. We decided to change our mindsets. Instead of always trying to win, both of us began to make sure the other person was always the winner. We're going to get back to that. That's a huge point. This little change caused our marriage to take on a strength that has endured 25 years. It was no longer about what I wanted from her, but what I wanted for her, and vice versa. This unlocked the practical power of 1 Corinthians 13:5. We discovered that love is simply looking for the win-win formula in every situation. What about you? In your marriage, how do you respond when your spouse does not meet your expectations? Love is not about getting something, but about giving something, as Christ gave himself for us. Can you recall a situation in your marriage or relationship in which you compromised and you both won? Oh, today's going to be good. 1 Corinthians 13:5 says, or rude, it does not demand its own way. It is not irritable, and it keeps no record of being wronged. So it's talking about love. And Ephesians 5:22-23 says, for wives, this means submit to your own husbands as in the Lord, for the husband is the head of the wife, as the Christ is the head of the church. He is a savior of the body and the church. We'll talk about that too in a minute. Okay, so I wanted to jump back into real quick this point, this huge point about making sure, sorry, I'm bringing it back up. Making sure that this little change right here, can you see my mouse? There we go. This little change, it says this little change right here. It's not a little change. She began to realize my loss was her loss, and I began to realize that if I lost, she lost. We decided that instead of always trying to win, both of us began to make sure the other person was always the winner. Here's the thing, is that if you care at all about each other, if you care at all about your friends, I mean, even your friends, don't you always want to make sure that the other person is winning? Don't you want to make sure they're winning at life? Don't you want to make sure that they're fulfilled, that they're happy, that they're getting what they need? I remember when we were friends before we were ever together, we were friends first. And we used to talk about our relationships. You were like that. It was like that. You were like talking about, you know, the people we were with or dating or whatever happened to be. And I remember thinking there was some time where we didn't talk for a while. We just knew that we weren't supposed to. We were just like, you know, God was just like, I don't really, we know all the reasons now, looking back, but he was like, I don't really want you guys to have any contact. And we both knew it. So it wasn't a weird, hard feelings thing. We just kind of discussed it. And we were like, yeah, I feel like that too. Like, I feel like, and that happened a couple of times. And we just did it. We just were obedient. And I'm so glad we did now. But in one of those times, I remember thinking, and by the way, it wasn't like for a time. We were told anymore. So it wasn't like God was like, this is going to be for like a year. It was
we didn't know. When we said bye, we didn't know if we were going to talk to each other ever.
Right. So this overwhelming feeling I had, I remember one time being like, well, how am I going to know if you're being taken care of? How am I going to know if my friend is happy or if you're getting what you need from, like, if, like, you know, I wanted to make sure. It's just like when you're talking to one of your friends, you're like, you know, you know the story that's happening, but you don't get to know the end of the story. You don't get to know how God's going to work in their lives anymore. You don't get to know if they're going to be taken care of. Mm-hmm. And I remember really being like kind of destroyed over that. Like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to know if you're being loved or if you're being taken care of. And legitimately at that point, we were not together. So it wasn't like, those things where people are like, I could take care of you. Like, it wasn't like that. But it was like, I was legitimately concerned that I wasn't going to know if he was okay, because I really cared about whether he was okay or not. We talked about God a lot, and just sort of what God was doing in our lives. And so it was that genuineness, right? And so I have carried that through, and I know you have too. He has too, because that's what we've carried through our marriage, is wanting to know if the other person's being taken care of. Now, fortunately now, and obviously for the last 10 years, we've been able to be the person that does that. So I don't have to worry about it. I just do it, and I take care of him, and I make sure he has what he needs. But we have always wanted to make sure that person has, that they're winning. I want to make sure that you're being able to have the dreams come true that you want, and all of that. That's the kind of attitude. That's one of the number one things that makes a marriage last, is that you're not out for yourself. And by the way, if you're doing it right, you don't have to be out for yourself, because they're out for you. Right. So I don't have to worry about getting what I need or looking out for myself, because he's looking out for me. And if you can trust each other with that, that's the thing is, and I know it's one of those things where, because I've been in this situation before, where you have to look out for yourself in your relationship because the other person isn't looking out for you. And so you're trying to look out for them and yourself. And then you just end up going, and you look out for yourself. And then both people do that, like in this devotional, and then it goes downhill.
Yeah. And I think that's what happens is, like when you started this, you said, this is not just for couples.
Right.
This is for friendships.
Right? Yeah.
And when you're in your relationship, before you get married, you're in a relationship. There's this whether it's a friendship or a courting period or whatever else, you're that friend. Aren't you? Aren't you guys friends? Aren't you finding what you have in common, the things that you enjoy doing with one another and everything? But during all that process, aren't you looking to make them happy? Aren't you looking to finding out what does make them happy? What are their goals? What are their dreams? What are but for some reason, once we get married, after the time goes on, we don't nurture that. We forget that. Once we get to, it's like we get to the goal of marriage and we get caught up in life.
I don't have to woo you anymore, so.
Right. And we back off. And I think that's that has been for us, praise God, the benefit of being friends first for so long, and then really wanting to make sure that each other was, that your needs were met, you made sure my needs are met, everything else, and but we've always done that. It's something that we consistently do on a daily basis, right? And so yesterday we were talking about when we're communicating, even in a disagreement, we never it never really enters our mind that you are saying something damaging
by intentions or ill will.
Right.
Yeah, no, exactly. No.
To me, or vice versa.
Well, and we don't ever really, we're really cognizant about how we talk to each other. But even if it's something that comes across wrong, we all say things that it comes out wrong. We're like, I don't know why I said it that way. I don't know. I'm just emotional, or I just don't feel good, or whatever. In those moments where we're very human, especially when we're hit with something like heart disease, very stressful, very confusing, very traumatic thing. You aren't saying things exactly the way you would normally say them when you're like got your head right. You're just saying stuff. But my intentions of my heart are always with goodwill. We're always to make sure that he's okay. They're always in love, right? And he's the same with me. So when we're going through these conversations, it's always to look out for the other person. Sometimes we're saying the things to look out for the other person, but it comes out wrong. So it comes out nagging or bossy when I'm just like fearful for something, and I'm just really, we talked about that yesterday, so go back and watch that. But same thing. We're trying to be protective, but it comes out wrong.
Yeah, the thing is you know, I know from my last heart event, my heart attack, recovering, I shared yesterday how I knew I was different.
Yeah.
And I knew I had this edge about me. And look, guys say these boneheaded things because sometimes we're trying to protect ourselves, and we're trying to, we think we have to protect ourselves, or we're angry, or we're frustrated. We don't know what's going on with us. And sometimes we say the wrong things. We say things, we raise our voice, we say things in the wrong way. We know what we meant to say, but what comes out of our mouth is a totally different thing.
I've done the same thing.
And yeah, exactly.
Totally.
But when that has happened,
I mean, literally the other day, I said, it's not what I meant. You go, well, that's what you said. I go, I don't know why I said that. I meant this. And I was just, sorry.
But at the same time, we're like, okay, we back off, and we like, all right,
what's really going on?
Yeah. Or we back off and let that be, let them, let us be in our thoughts. And then we come back, because we know we don't continue to poke the bear, right?
Right. Well, that's a great point you make, because here's the thing, is part of communication is knowing when to not communicate for a minute, knowing when to walk away and go, you know what? We're going to not communicate for just a minute. We're going to walk away, not because we're too angry to talk, not because we don't want to talk, not because we don't care, not because we don't want to address the situation, not because we are being non-confrontational. Sometimes you have to be responsible enough with your communication to know when a good time, a healthy time to communicate your feelings is. You have to process your feelings. You need to worry about like how you're going to come across. How about when it's a good time? You're trying to have these conversations when your kids are running around the room, or when, it's like midnight and you're like tired and you've had a long day. Like, when you're sick, probably not the best time to have a conversation about something serious. Maybe when you're driving or you're on your way to somewhere and you're in a hurry, probably not. On the phone when you have not a lot of time, probably not the best time. Over text, never a good idea. So, it's just like, you need to know, like, I'm going to text this to you. Nope, don't do that. People who break up over text messages, so bad. But even just regular stuff like, I love when people do this. This is my favorite. I'm just going to drop a bomb right before a meeting, or like, hey, we should talk about this later. What? It's like you can't even focus. So no timing. That's another thing that really makes a marriage last. Be responsible with your communication, not just clear, not just loving, but responsible. You have to be responsible about your communication, because it comes down to there are definite things that attack our communication that we aren't in control over, like timing. We let our emotions run away with us, and all of a sudden, because I'm definitely guilty of this, not in as many in blah, 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 blah. Being responsible with my communication, by the way. I can't talk. Not as much.
I totally understood.
I know. Of course you did. Not as much recently, I was going to say, in the last few years. But when I was younger, I was so, with my emotions, I was so, let them run away with my, what I needed to say or what I needed to get out. I would just be like, well, I feel it right now, so I need to say it right now, like a dummy. Like, I'm like, hey, we're going to talk about it now. It's 11 o'clock at night, but this is when we need to talk. Like,
yeah, right.
Oh my gosh. Oh, hey, Lene says, timing is very important. Yes. Sometimes we're all a little harsher with those we love because we're so comfy with them that we don't censor our, yes, I have to what? Yeah. Oh my gosh, with kids. Absolutely. 100%. So we don't censor ourselves. And then we want to teach our kids that we're supposed to treat our families better than we treat other people, because they're the most important people to us. Meanwhile, we're like, wah, 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 with our kids and our spouse. And then when we're around other people, they watch us be like totally different. And it's like, why do we do that? So, we have to be good examples too. And that's another thing is that, with marriage, do you want to be a good example? That's another reason. It's just not another way, but another reason why we need to be loving, compassionate, and responsible with our communication with our spouse, because we need to be modeling this for our kids. We're like all shocked when our kids don't have good marriages or relationships. Meanwhile, we had like the rockiest marriages ever or something. Right. Then that's what they had as an example. You know, I mean, they didn't have
you want your kids, you know, just the other day I was sharing what I read, you know, we want our kids to be respectful. We want our kids to be responsible. Yet, what kind of example did we set for them in our house? Were we respectful to people? Were we respectful to our wife or husband? Were we respectful to our neighbors? Did we show gratitude? We want our kids to be not so selfish.
Don't be selfish.
Don't be selfish, right?
Yeah. If you want your kids to eat vegetables, you should eat vegetables.
Right.
In front of them.
Exactly right. Yeah. So if you want your kids to be healthy, right? Maybe you need to be healthy. You know, we've been fortunate enough to have a good sized gym in our house. And so, you know, we work out. The kids, this is part of our life. The kids, work out with us, and this is part of their lifestyle. Do they work out with us all the time? No. You know, their bodies are in a totally different stage than ours, right? But they do need activity. But you know, they don't need to be behind their devices. Yeah. So they get out. We take hikes together. We do things together. So those are examples that we hope later in life will benefit them. They have their own physical and physical challenges that we hope that what we're doing now will set them for a better life in the future. But it's not like we say, well, you got to do this, you got to do that. Right. No, we have to set the example.
So think about that with parenting. That's an example with parenting, but it's the same way with a marriage.
Exactly right.
If you want your spouse to be a certain way, but you're not willing to be that way, what are you doing? Like, you're not going to, hey, I need you to be compassionate while I scream at you. Right. Like, you have to, modeling is the best form of lovingly persuading anyone to be or do anything you want them to do. You cannot force someone to do anything. You cannot. You have to model it. So modeling the compassion in a marriage will not always, I get that. I know that it takes two, but it will be the most powerful way to beget the response that you're looking for, the equal response. Right. Be the thing you want to see. That's why people say, be the thing you want to see in the world, be the change you want to see, because that's the most powerful way to create change, to create bonding, you know, like bonds in relationships. Yeah. Is to be on the same page. Yeah. And one of the ways to be on the same page is to model it to the other person, to model it to your family, to your friends, your neighbors, whatever relationship you're talking about. Modeling is the number one way. If I want people to be a friend to me, the way I want them to be a friend to me, I'm that friend first. Always. Like if I'm invested in a friendship and I want them to be able to confide in me and I want them to, and I want to be able to get a hold of them, then they better be able to get a hold of me. Like, you know what I mean?
No, that's so true. And so let's bring this all back around. The whole thing is how are we going to make our marriage last? And the picture that they painted is this couple that they're having problems. They're fighting and things are, you know, their ship is sinking down. So what they realized, they're in the same boat. You say this the same time all the time. We're in the same boat. We're always in the same boat. But every time you say something damaging to your spouse, your partner, it's like taking a shotgun and shooting into the bottom of the boat.
In the boat. Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
And so you're both going down. You're damaging yourself. And the thing is, well, okay, how do we start to get the water out and start to patch these holes and to make this boat sustainable again?
Right.
How do we do that?
Well, you both have to do it for one.
But you both have to do it, yes. But it's not that you're expecting that person, well, you got to do this for me. You got to do that. You. No, it's you. You got to do it.
Yeah.
You got to be that person first. And hopefully that other person's on board and agrees that in the same way that I got to do what I got to do what I can for you first. It's you putting yourself out there. And I know, look, this is a scary thing because at this point in a marriage, there's probably a lot of scars. There's a lot of memories.
Yeah.
And you said this about me and you did this. And what about, I know you and I know that look.
Mm-hmm. I know what you're thinking.
And I know what you're thinking. So therefore, because I know what you're thinking.
Even maybe you don't, by the way.
Right. Or maybe they are thinking that, but what is their response? Maybe they're frustrated with the situation because that's just
because it's
life.
heart disease,
but
or whatever.
But they're frustrated, but it's not at you, and you jump to conclusions because of something in the past. Look, if you keep letting the past interfere with your future, you will go nowhere. Your boat will continue to sink.
I have something that I just got. I feel like this is something that this is extremely important. And this is actually something that saved me years ago from operating badly in relationships. I realized this, and one day when I realized it, it saved me from heartache in marriage, my kids, people, all relationships. This was the number one thing that saved all my relationships and my sanity. We have to stop doing and saying things based on what the other person deserves or what response we're going to get. It doesn't matter if you know the other person won't respond back to you. Why would I do that? They're not going to care anyway, because it can't be whether they care. Your modeling or your decision to be the person that you were called to be by God has nothing to do with that other person's response, whether they care, whether they come back at you with good or bad, or do nothing or leave. It doesn't matter. You're called to be who you're called to be, regardless of what happens with anyone around you. God has asked you to be a certain person. He's asked you to act and think and say and be a certain thing. And that's it. I know that this is hard to hear, but I had to hear this from God, and it changed everything. I do things because in the morning I wake up and I look in the mirror and I know I'm doing what God and being who God wants me to be. And it doesn't matter if anyone believes that's who I truly am. It doesn't matter if that's never who I was before and they think I'm still that person and haven't changed. It doesn't matter if they appreciate it. It doesn't matter if I get a thank you. It doesn't matter if they see it or don't see it. I see it. God sees it. And I know that when I look at myself in the mirror in the morning, I'm the person that I truly want to be. And the only thing that I need to make sure is that I'm reconciling that with God. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter what he says or what my kids say thank you or don't say thank you for. Mm-hmm. All those things start to stir all the crap up of resentment and bitterness and all the he said, she said, you're doing more, I'm doing more. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, you're thinking this. No, I'm not. You said what? All that's crap when it comes to, no, am I the person I'm called to be? Am I striving every day to be who God called me to be? Mm. Then everything flows from that.
Right.
That's how to make a marriage or any other relationship last, because then you're always the person that steps out first, and you're never a doormat. Because you know why? No one's walking on the person who's walking with Christ.
Yes.
You're Absolutely. Just who you are. So let them be whoever they want to be. That's between them and God if they're walking on people. But if you're walking with Christ, then you're but because think about it. Are you doing the things for that person because you're being a doormat, or are you being the person that you want to be regardless of their response? This is who I want to be. I want to be a person who gives. I want to be a person who nurtures people. I want to be yes, there's boundaries and we should have those. But don't not be the giver and the lover and the compassionate person and the friend you wanted so desperately be because somebody else is taking advantage of it. That's on them. Mm-hmm. That's on them. Be the person you want to be, because I'm telling you what will happen is it screws this is what the enemy wants. He will cut off your superpowers, your who God called you to be person from those who really need it and will appreciate it. And God's asking you to go serve, asking for you to impact. He's created you to impact these people, and they'll never receive it because you cut it off because of a person who attacked it, and the enemy wanted that. And you cut that off and you decided, nope, I don't want to be that person for that guy or that girl. But here's the problem is that now you're not that person. Now what? Now you have to reconcile that with God. And it had everything to do with you giving power to somebody else and having it be the reason. My motivation for being the person I am is not because of my response I'm getting from someone else. Yes, I understand how important that is and everything, but it can't be the core of why we do what we do. It has to be who we want to be for ourselves and for God, and that integrity and that identity that we have in Christ. Okay. Yeah. So that was something that was just dropped on me while you were talking. And I was like, oh, because that's the core of relationship.
Yeah. And you know, the enemy, you're right. The enemy goes and attacks that and saying, well, you know, this looks like a one-sided relationship, doesn't it? He doesn't appreciate you?
Oh my gosh.
He's not listening to you.
Yeah.
Right?
He's changed. He had a heart attack. He's not even the same person. He doesn't love you anymore.
Exactly.
What?
So all these thoughts are going through you, all these thoughts are being placed there, and then we start questioning, and then we lose focus on why are we doing what we're doing.
Yep. Why do I even try? Why am I even putting myself out there for this person?
So for instance, when we decided to switch to our nutritional lifestyle, right? And you did all the work, all the research. You redesigned and reconstructed recipes, and you created all this stuff. And then suddenly I said, well, I'm not on board. You know?
He didn't say that. He's just being
no
as an example.
But an example is I'm not on board and everything. Were you doing that? Yes, you were doing that for me. But you were also doing that because God called you to do that.
I was doing that because I needed to.
Right.
And I'm not going to apologize for it, whether you want it or not. I was supposed to do that.
Right.
That's
and the reason why I bring this up, because believe it or not, when you start making these changes in the house, food, nutrition, it becomes this line that's drawn in households. It becomes the very thing that civil wars are created over, right?
No, it's true.
In a house, you have some sides in the house that are on one side and some on the other, and there's this actual civil war going on over food. And one person says, well, I did this, I'm done this for you, I'm trying to help you this and trying to do this, and then pretty soon that turns into, or perceived to be, nagging, or does turn into nagging,
right?
And then the other person is just leave me alone, and I'm going to do all this. So there's a lot of this resentment. But the thing is what you're saying is, there's this part, you're doing this for me, but the bigger calling
is that God asked me to.
And the thing is if I was to do that, then I need to face the consequences. If I was to say, okay, I know what I'm supposed to do. I know what's good for me. And if I'm going to ignore what God asked her to do for me and the household, then that's on me. That's not on her. That's
the thing at the end of the day I'm saying is that, do you want it to be on you? Because you decided that that you're not responsible for your own decisions. That's the other thing, is that I'm responsible for my decisions. Okay. Stop changing and wavering and basing everything off of your environment and the variability of human interaction and decision making. Because like, if he was to make his change his mind and be like, I'm throwing that out the window, but I was still like, but I mean, we need to be healthy, then I would stick to that and be like, guess what I'm doing? And you're going to have to catch up. You're going to have to figure it out because you know better. And that's between you and God. And I always know that God's going to strike him down faster than me. So, because I know his relationship with God, and I know his values, and I know his convictions, and I don't need to be the one yelling at him about it. And he will be the one that has to deal with it. But I'm going to continue doing the thing that God called me to do, because I'm the person I'm trying to be the person I want to be, regardless of the response and reaction of those around me. I learned one of the most powerful things that ever happened with this realization for me was with my parenting, with my kids. As a mom, we are constantly never being thanked by our kids. Why would we be thanked by our kids? We're doing our job. We're doing the things that we're supposed to do for them.
Right.
Regardless of the variabilities of the I understand there's all different levels of this. Some moms go way out of their way and do things that they should never be doing for their kids. And like all the things, their kids never learn any lessons and they do everything and they, fold their little socks till they're 26 or whatever. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about normal everyday things that are your job. We think we're supposed to get a thank you. We're never getting a thank you, first of all. Okay. Our kids aren't going to realize what we're really doing. And then they shouldn't. That's the thing. But we're doing it because I want to be a good mom. Because God called me to be a mom. Because God called me to be a good mom. He called me to be a certain kind of mom. He called me to meet the needs of my kids where they are. Okay? I reconcile to God, not my kids at the end of the day, whether I did a good job. I don't need a thank you from my kids. They do thank me because they're amazing, but I don't require it. If they didn't, I'd be like, okay, how many times though during the day we're like, oh, you don't even appreciate it. You don't even appreciate it. Who cares? You know who I know appreciates it? God does. I appreciate that I'm a better mom than I've ever been in my life because I've been a bad mom before. And I know that years and years ago. That's a different lifetime. So I strive to always be the mom that I always wanted to be. And I am now. And that's not because I have better kids or I have different kids or I have grateful kids. It's because I decided that it matters. It matters that I'm the person that God called me to be. So my communication with them is based on I'm being the mom that I want to be, and they get to benefit from that, and they're happy, and it doesn't matter if they say thank you.
Right.
And everybody wins. And so this compromise is talking about, have you ever compromised and everybody won? Love is coming together and meeting in the middle and communicating in a way that you're the same team, you're on the same page, and you're battling the same thing together. You're growing and changing together. So back to what you were talking about in the beginning with changing. How we avoid change. We should always all be changing. And we're always concerned that the other person's changing without us. Well, then get with them and change together. Let heart disease or battles like heart disease, whatever it may be, that comes into your family's life, be the catalyst for everyone to move forward and step up on that stepping stone of the adversity that you're facing and do it together and grow together.
Because you're in the same boat.
Yes.
And you have to understand as a family, as a unit, you're in the same boat. And if one goes down, you go down with them. The thing is we're saying this kind of overall. And I know relationships, especially marriage relationships that are having difficult times. There's a lot of dynamics. There's a lot of things going on, a lot of things that were done, a lot of pain, a lot of scars. And it's not just that easy. Okay?
Right. No, it's not.
And so when we're talking about compromise, well, I have compromised and that didn't work, right? Well, compromise again and find a way. And if you're having difficulty, if this getting to that point to compromise and trust and all the things that we've been talking about this morning, if you're having difficulty with that, first, number one, pray about it.
Pray.
Okay, that's the first thing.
And pray together if you can.
And then if you need more, ask God to bring forth a counselor or someone that could mediate, okay, whether it's within your church or some sort of professional that you trust and that values your faith and values your perspective. But get help, get some outside help, get some outside perspective. And hopefully you both be agreeable to something like this, right, guys? We need to be agreeable to therapy or to some sort of counseling. That isn't being weak. That isn't being vulnerable.
It also doesn't mean you're totally screwed up either.
Right. You're trying to save your marriage.
Yeah.
Your ship is going down. This is something that you've worked on for a while now. And just like if it was something that was, just like if it was something else you cherished in life and it was decaying, you would do everything possible to save it.
I would say this.
And sometimes,
go ahead.
Sometimes it's beyond our skills. And sometimes we have to get some outside help. to get some perspective. And then once we do, we're like, oh, okay, that's how we're going to do it. You give me a roadmap. Guys are good with roadmaps. Okay. We just are. And once you have a roadmap, okay, then I can do that.
Right.
Just sometimes I think we have problems connecting the dots. Sometimes
a lot of people do
when it's something that we've never done before. So that's what the whole purpose of a therapist or a counselor is for. It's just a guide to get you guys there.
Well, and this is what I was going to say. I'll say that in a minute. But I was also going to say is that, sometimes all the time, when you're on the inside of a situation, this is why we recommend counseling so much. When you're on the inside of a situation, any situation, you cannot see what's really going on. That's why couples need to go get couples therapy sometimes. It doesn't mean that you guys are broken people and you can't be fixed, or you just I don't know how to have a marriage and other people do, and so there's something wrong with us. No, a lot of people should be in counseling because they're having communication issues. It doesn't make you weak. But here's what I think does. Would you rather, and this is for those stubborn-headed people out there, and I know who you are because I used to be real stubborn, and so did he, right? Like, I think we're very still stubborn people, but we've learned with each other to not be. But we used to be, by nature, super stubborn, okay? So I'm talking to you. Would you rather think, well, if I go to counseling, that makes me weak, or that means something's terribly wrong, or something, it makes me weak. It's a failure, right? Would you rather fail that way or feel like, I have something to fix? Or would you rather your marriage fail? To me, it's weaker to let your marriage fail because you're too afraid to go get help than to go get help. That's weaker to me. I mean, would you rather live with, I had to go get couples therapy and then we fixed everything and things were great, but I just didn't know what was going on, and I had to deal with the fact that I didn't understand it and had to have someone tell me what to fix. Does that feel scarier? Or I let my whole family down. I lost my kids. I failed this marriage because I wasn't willing to do anything. I just let it go. That I get to live with that. Just saying. Either way, there is something coming on your family. There's an attack or adversity that's come into the picture. Today, we're not talking about every divorce situation or every marriage situation.
No, because there's, like I said, these things are dynamic. These are very complicated situations, and we're not talking about obviously abusive relationships, things that have other issues. Those other issues, like if there's alcohol or drugs involved, or there's
toxicity,
or abuse type situations, those need to be resolved in itself.
Yeah, that's different.
Whether they're drugs or alcohol, that person needs to resolve that.
Addictions
and some sort of addictions or past abuse, or those need to be addressed professionally, for sure. You need, if this is becoming a problem in your marriage, you for sure need professional help in that specific area. But I'm talking about that and then beyond. So you can't say, for instance, your spouse has a drug or alcohol problem and they're getting help with that specific thing. You can't just say, well, they're getting help,
so this should get fixed,
so everything's good. No. There's things that happened in the marriage because of that thing, yes. But this is still a marriage, and they're changing. This is the same thing with heart disease. They're changing, and they're trying to do better. It's not something separate from you, separate from a relationship, that they're handling this, they're doing this, and we're all good. No, they're changing. They're trying to be a different person. So therefore, they're a different person into this marriage. So how are we going to adapt? How are we going to adapt and overcome this?
Right, because what they're essentially doing when somebody goes and deals with their addiction issues or whatever, and that's something that they can actually take on. That's great. But that's all they're doing is changing who they're bringing to the table. They're saying, well, this is who I bring to the table of this marriage right now. This is what I'm contributing, and it's not good enough. This is a total toxic ball of addiction and poison, and I can't bring this to the table anymore. So I'm going to take this over here and we're going to fix this. I'm going to fix me. So then they go fix me, go fix themselves, right? They go work on like rehab and whatever they're going to do. All they're doing is changing what they're bringing to the conversation. Okay. You guys still have to have the conversations. With heart disease, it's the same way. Exactly. And you said it actually better than me, because what I was going to say is that we're not talking about every problem that could ever be in every divorce situation or marriage situation. I'm talking about like when you're, sailing along in life or whatever you think, and then this major adversity, usually a health issue, but like, sometimes it's a financial issue or whatever, but we're talking about health here. When heart disease hits, some of the similar stuff happens, where all of a sudden this person's going through all of their own things. We talked about this yesterday. Actually, yesterday we went really far into, well, what happens with the person when they have heart disease hit their life, and they're like, all of a sudden everything about how they're thinking changes. All of a sudden they're thinking about different things. They're facing the mortality. They had a lot of trauma. They could have PTSD. Like, this is all stuff that we as a society don't address the trauma and the PTSD and the emotional and mental health of people who are dealing with heart disease. There's not enough out there. In fact, that's why our nonprofit, because this nonprofit is going to be tackling that kind of thing moving forward. Those are some of the programs we want to have in place because of that lack of support and service to the heart disease community, because people need to have support in that mental space of how they're dealing with this adversity. Now, that spills over into the marriage space. And that's what we're talking about today, is that those people need help, but marriages need help in that space too, because this is a lot. So that person might be getting themselves together, but the communication is the key. So with all that said, okay, as in marriage, and I want to end with this, unless you have something else.
No.
In marriage, we can take on a lot as humans. I mean, I know that no matter what happened, we could take it on. Mm-hmm. And it may be the worst thing we've ever been through, or it may be something that personally like damages us or traumatizes us, or whatever it happens to be. But I know that it wouldn't affect our relationship in a way where we weren't a relationship anymore. We've taken on a lot. In fact, we've gone through things in our marriage in 10 years that not only most people don't go through in a lifetime of marriage, but would destroy most marriages. And I'm not talking about stuff between he and I. I'm talking about stuff we have navigated together, which is why we're still together, because there's definite possibility that most marriages would have ended over a lot of the things we've navigated through. But we're a team.
And that's not to boast. That's
no. That's just life. But we're a team though. And that's what I'm just trying to say. That's been the big difference. Yeah. That's been the catalyst.
But there's one key thing that we're leaving out that's also in our boat. That's God.
That's God. That's Jesus.
Okay. Mm-hmm. What do we say when we got married? One of our things is that God is our third strand. Mm-hmm. If you think of a rope and the strands of a rope, it's just not a 2-strand rope. Mm-hmm. Stronger with the third strand.
He ties it all together.
And he brings it all together.
Yep.
So he's always in our boat. And that's why I always say when you're having issues or there's problems, you go to him first. Yep. You rely on your third strand.
Together.
The third strand is the strongest strand between you two. And you have to remember that. And we have always, that's, what you had just said. It's not been about us. It's not what we did necessarily. No. It's what he's held together.
Well, and the other thing I was going to say about that we could handle anything, what I was getting at is that communication, as long as we've communicated about these things, what I was getting out of being a team is that it's the communication that's changed everything. When we communicate successfully and healthy about whatever we're navigating, and then we take it to God, that is what has brought us through all those situations.
Yeah.
So heart disease, by the way, has been one of the easiest things in that list of things, I would say, because it's been kind of throughout. I only say easiest because there's been a lot more traumatic things that have happened. Yeah. But heart disease is up there. But it's been one of the easiest because what we've always done with heart disease is let it be the catalyst to a healthier lifestyle. Mm-hmm. Let it be the catalyst to our deeper and greater faith. Mm-hmm. Let it be the catalyst to us being closer and closer as a team.
Yeah. Yeah.
instead of it being a burden.
Yeah. The thing is I don't want to give the wrong impression. Like we've never had communication problems. Okay. Yes, we've had
Sure.
those problems, but because of that third strand, because of God, we go to him and figure out, how can we make this better? How can we communicate? There's times that I've had problems communicating with you. You've had problems communicating with me. And we've always fallen back to our prayer to God and saying, okay, Lord, help me to see this in his or hers way, and help me to say this better, or how can it, or go to that person, how can I say this better? And there are times that I don't know.
Right.
And that, again, that's when you lean on God and you and he steps in, and sometimes it's the other person that's just not wanting to hear.
Or doesn't understand. I've had times where we've had back and forth, trying to figure out where the communication breakdown even is. We know it's there, but like, where is it? Who is it? And the beautiful part about our relationship is that each of us is always willing to go, is it me?
Yes, because of the standard. The standard is, I know that she is not out to hurt me. I know she's desperately trying to make a point or communicate with me, and vice versa. There is no ill will.
And there's no ego.
And no ego. So that's the standard. So if you are able to move forward with that standard and create that standard, and then
it's a safe framework
to
operate in. So there's times where I'm like, is it me? And then we'll discuss if it's me, and we're not, nobody is attacking anyone. And here's why. Here's the key. And this is,
it's definitely you.
Right? It's not you, it's me. Right. But no, it's one of those things where this is what I was getting at. And I'm glad that this came up, because this is the key to the whole, it's communication is key. We know that we've been attacked on a lot of fronts in our lives. We know that we have a rock solid marriage. We know that. You know who else knows that? The enemy knows that.
Yes.
The enemy knows we have a rock solid marriage. So he's going to try to pick on whatever he can pick on. And the number one thing the enemy picks on in a marriage is communication. So when we have any breakdown in communication, not only do we pray about it, but we identify it. Not necessarily even what the breakdown is at first, but that the fact that it's a breakdown in communication is the issue. Not the fact that, remember, not the standard, not the fact that it's the ill will, or I have this resentful feeling, or I have, something I'm not telling you, or whatever crappy thing we say to ourselves. No, it's just that we have a breakdown in communication. We're just not communicating well. And we're not understanding what the other person's saying. We've had whole conversations. We've had whole conversations where we actually agree. This has happened so many times. We agree, but we don't feel like we're getting the words out right. So we'll go around and around for 30 minutes and realize at the end that we agreed the whole time.
30 minutes. That's
okay. Funny. Okay. Just this piece, an hour and a half. I don't know, but it's not short, but we want to work it out so bad. That's the thing. We'll have long conversations, just making sure we don't walk away hurt because we think the other person was not understanding us or hurt, or didn't care. We know it's the communication breakdown. So then we start getting into engineer mode. We're like, all right, what is it? And so we'll just try to work out, where is it we broke down in communication, and make sure that we walk away with, okay, I think I understand what you're saying now. And I get what you were saying. And I realize it wasn't what you meant. And I meant this. And, sometimes, what happens too is we bring in old tapes. We have old tapes of, you're not hearing me. You don't want to hear what I have to say, because we were both in relationships before where they didn't want to hear what we had to say. They didn't value our opinions or point of view and didn't care, didn't want to hear us out. There was no weight put on our point of view or our contribution. Plenty of times, plenty of relationships. But that's not who we are. And we'll bring that automatic response in, and we realize and identify it. See, being a perfect human doesn't exist. Identifying where your breakdown is what you need to do, and go, okay, I see what I'm doing. I'm bringing this old crap in, and I'm having an automatic response. I know that's not you. I'm sorry I did that. I got to work on that. Okay, that's what happened. I just thought you weren't listening and you had something else going on. And I just immediately responded with, you don't care about what I have to say, and it doesn't have anything to do with the person. And that's when it comes into you're caring about what the other person's going through. Sometimes we have trauma. Now, back to heart disease. This person has changed because they went through something very traumatic, including the support person, by the way. Maybe you've both changed. but your thought processes, you're bringing in traumatic thought processes into this, and you've got to give each other grace and space to process things differently. So there's a lot of things going on with communication. And so obviously, like I said, this is longer than a 1-hour conversation on how to restore a marriage. But just know that communication is the big kahuna of how to kill a marriage and how to restore a marriage. It can be the absolute most powerful thing, both directions. And God
that title.
Is the head of that.
Communication is the big kahuna.
It is. But anyway, so that's all we can fit into an hour, but that's it right there is communication.
Hour
and 1 minute.
Minutes. Okay.
So,
all right, guys. So we're going to end this here, but if you have anything to add to this,
absolutely,
feel free to comment.
Definitely comment.
And because we always look at your guys' comments. So if you're catching this on replay, feel free to comment, make a comment below on, what did you get out of this today? Did you get something out of this? Whether it's a little nugget or a perspective, we'd love to hear that. Or if you have any questions. But if you got something out of today, hit like and share this. If you know someone that you feel that could get something out of off this discussion, please share this.
Yeah,
we would really appreciate it.
I know for a fact that there's marriages out there, and that heart disease does affect most people in some way, whether you know someone with heart disease or you have it in your family yourself, whether you're preventing heart disease because it's in your genetics, whatever the case may be. Everybody knows somebody that that's been affected by heart disease, been touched by that. And I know that there are families out there that are struggling, and most of the time it's in silence because they think that it's just something wrong with them, or they just don't know how to deal with it. And really, it's very common. It's very common. And so the more we can share these things, the more we can get it out there to the people who need to hear that they're not alone, that there is hope, and that we see you, we understand you, and we love you. Okay, we're here for you. This community is here for you. And that's what we're here to do. Then the better off this mission will be. And we need to do it as a community. It can't be a mission of two. It cannot. So that it's just too big for us. So we need to get everybody rallied around this. So share these devotionals, these discussions, and these broadcasts with your friends and family. And maybe they'll share it, and maybe it'll keep going, and it'll get in front of the right people that really desperately need to get their marriage back, and they just don't know how to come out of it. Exactly. So, and if you're watching on our YouTube channel, make sure that you hit that subscribe button so that you get notified whenever we go live or when we add content to our channel. Like and comment there. We absolutely want to engage with you there as well, and we thank you for your support as well on that.
All right, everyone. We will see you later. Have a blessed day.
Have a blessed day.